The Morgan Gibbs-White transfer saga set to drag on a bit more. Wissa's situation, Koni De Winter, PSG's Luis Enrique and his situation and what it could mean for Tottenham. A cheeky remark and comment from Kudus, and information about the Supercup and PSG, all here on the latest edition of Tottenham News and Transfer Update. Welcome back to the channel and another edition of Tottenham News. My name is Craig and I'll be going through all the latest news, rumours and reports. If you're watching on YouTube and are not already subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. Like, share and comment below. And if you're listening on an audio platform, please do hit that follow button and leave a review if you can. And if you have a spare minute, please vote for the channel at the Football Content Awards 2025. All of the details are below. And before we start, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to the 40.1 million viewers in 2025 who've pressed the play button on the channel. Absolutely incredible support and numbers. And the latest stats show we are #1 and the most listened to football podcast in Hong Kong and Denmark. So all I can say to the people out there and over there is thank you, and thank you. Well, as you'd expect, loads of news surrounding Morgan Gibbs-White out there today in the press, and I'll go through a few of them on here and try and pick the bones out of what we can and give you a timeline so far. So for Fabrizio Romano on Are Tottenham still confident of signing Morgan Gibbs-White, he said yes, they are. It's a tense situation, but Spurs hope to be able to proceed soon. Nottingham Forest made a point by posting a picture on their social media platforms showing Morgan Gibbs-White returning to the training ground, wearing white and blue, it has to be said. The Sun report Nottingham Forest will not make it easy for Tottenham, but the Morgan Gibbs-White deal is expected to get over the line eventually. The Sun go on to report that Nottingham Forest are understood to have now lodged their legal complaint with the Premier League over Tottenham Hotspur's proposed move for midfielder Morgan Gibbs-White. The report continues, Nottingham Forest won't make it easy for Tottenham to sign Gibbs-White, but the deal is expected to get over the line. Thomas Frank sees Morgan Gibbs-White as the kind of dynamic number 10 he wants in his new look Tottenham Hotspur side. TBR Football understands that Morgan Gibbs-White has made it clear to Nottingham Forest owner Evangelos Marinakis that he wants to join Tottenham Hotspur. Gibbs-White returned to Forest training this morning, with his £60 million move to Spurs currently being halted by the Midlands club dispute over the player's release clause. Tottenham remain confident that a deal will get done, and TBR Football report and can confirm that the 25-year-old has informed the owner he wants to leave. First, Marinakis wants answers as to how the North London club found out about his £60 million release clause, which he is furious about. However, TBR Football has been told that given it exists and both player and Spurs want to activate it, there is little that can be done. And on the Morgan Gibbs-White transfer, Football.London report it's difficult to predict right now with complete certainty as it's an unusual situation. And that's reflected in the media coverage across the board. But the feeling among many is at this early stage, it seems to be that Forest are more likely to hold up the deal rather than prevent it. The worry, of course, is for Tottenham fans whether will be this delay in proceedings allows another club to enter the fray and go about it in a way that Forest do not have an issue with. However, that also surely gets messy from a legal standpoint, as Spurs had the deal all but done with the player set for his medical before Forest reportedly cut off communications. What comes next? Well, now we will have to wait and see if everything gets threshed out between the various parties to end this transfer limbo. There seems to be a sense from various sides that the deal for Gibbs-White will eventually get done, but it will certainly be made more difficult and take more time because of Forest's legal complaint. Gibbs-White has 2 years remaining on his contract with Forest, who are keen to get him to sign a new deal and in fact extend it. It could be that Forest attempts to get more money out of Tottenham, or look for the midfielder to forego any bonuses he might be entitled to, or simply look for the North London club to be punished for what they see as an illegal approach. Much will come down to the legality of how that release clause was triggered and its existence. Secret or not, looks likely to be the Midlands side's biggest problem. The longer things are drawn out, the more concerned Spurs fans will have of another club looking to take advantage by swooping in to end it all. But Forest would, in that scenario, not get any more money. And more on Morgan Gibbs-White, this time from TalkSport's Ben Jacobs. He says, Tottenham deny any wrongdoing. I still feel this deal can be done and will be done, but it's on Forest now. Tottenham do not have permission to even engage with the player right now to attempt to formalise this. So the two clubs are either going to have to agree on something, and maybe it's a case of something around the release clause. If Tottenham want this, they can go away. They can, instead of waiting for Forest to either drop it or resolve it, just actually make another offer and see whether that's good enough. But they would need to go higher than the release clause, or they can see if Forest actually understands that Gibbs-White wants the move. He wants to play for Thomas Frank, and he wants to play in the Champions League. Former Spurs coach Sergio Raymondo on the time under Ange Postecoglou, he said, when it worked full power. We look in 100 years from now and the Europa League wins, it is in history. Nobody will focus about anything else from this season other than a title was won. Sky Sports report that Brentford are highly unlikely to sell both Bryan Mbeumo and Yoane Wissa this summer amid interest from several Premier League clubs. Manchester United have been in talks with Brentford for Mbeumo for some time, but there remains a gap in their respective valuations of the forward. United's offer of a £55 million fixed fee plus £7.5 million in add-ons falls short of the £65 million Brentford want, including all, if not most, up front. Meanwhile, Wissa is a target for Tottenham, Newcastle and Nottingham Forest, the latter having had a bid rejected for the Congo striker. Whichever club agrees a deal for Wissa or Mbeumo would almost certainly rule out the sale of the other. Brentford selling Mbeumo and Wissa would be such a significant loss of goals and attacking talent that it would be near impossible for the club to lose them. Mbeumo has made it clear he only wants to move to United, and personal terms are believed to have been agreed in principle. B's sporting director Phil Giles told Sky Sports News that Mbeumo would be happy to stay at the club if a deal, which has to be right for Brentford, does not materialise. Football Italia report that according to reports in Belgium, Inter are on the verge of securing Genoa defender Koni De Winter for €25 million as he prefers them to Tottenham Hotspur. The former Juventus centre-back is a target for several different clubs this summer following an impressive couple of campaigns at Mariassi. Today, Nieuwsblad in Belgium insists that De Winter has made his decision and that he is preferring Inter to the Premier League side. It does mean a transfer is imminent though, because the Nerazzurri need to sell first in order to free up space in their defence for the 23-year-old. The cost of the operation is expected to reach €25 million, including add-ons, which the player agree in personal terms for a switch to San Siro. He is a Belgium international with 3 senior caps and has been in Italy since 2018 for Juventus, making the transfer to Genoa for €8 million in 2024 following an initial loan. As part of that deal, Genoa still owe Juve a 20% cut of the sell-on fee. PSG boss Luis Enrique could miss the Spurs game in the Super Cup because of his behaviour in his side's defeat versus Chelsea in the Club World Cup final. Enrique said at the end of the match there was a lot of tension. There was a situation that I believe could have been avoided by everyone. I think that is logical. I'm going to prevent my players from going any further in that brawl, and from then on there is a pushing and shoving by everyone. I think, and I repeat, that is not the best thing to do. It's the result of the tension, the result of the situation of the match, and I have nothing more to add. Referring to Enrique's behaviour at the MetLife Stadium, Spanish referee Eduardo Gonzalez told The Sun, Of course, you can be sanctioned. There's a difference. The red and yellow cards in the tournament will expire, but FIFA can sanction him with time. So if Luis Enrique is given a 1 month ban, he would miss any games in that month. What's more, he wouldn't even be able to train the team. You can't touch an opponent's face. That's already a humiliating issue that you have to go over and punch a player in the face when the game is over. I don't look at names, I look at the action, and if we look at the action, it's punishable. FIFA is above UEFA. If FIFA tells you there are 3 matches in their competition, but since in this tournament the red, yellow and red cards ended, FIFA can, on the other hand, sanction players based on time. And a quick bit of news from Mohamed Kudus' medical, when the doctor said to him, "I'm just going to listen to your heart, okay?" Mohamed Kudus replied, "You'll find Spurs there." And leading on from this, a report in the Standard states that Mohamed Kudus has potentially upset West Ham United fans with remarks made during his move to Tottenham Hotspur. After completing a £55 million transfer, Kudus said in his first interview that he only wanted Spurs. A behind-the-scenes video from his medical further fueled tensions, showing him joking that the doctor would find Spurs in his heart. This, along with praise for the Spurs kit and his visible excitement during the tour, has sparked discussion among former fans. Kudus is the first player West Ham sold to Spurs since 2011 and leaves after 2 seasons, which he scored 13 goals and provided 9 assists in the Premier League. And Football.London report that Tottenham Hotspur aim to emulate Chelsea's recent win over Paris Saint-Germain when they face the French side in the UEFA Supercup on 13th of August. Chelsea beat PSG 3-0 in the FIFA World Cup Club Cup final, with Cole Palmer scoring twice and João Pedro once. PSG's João Neves was sent off late in the game for pulling Marc Cucurella's hair following rising tensions on the pitch. Despite the red card, UEFA confirmed to Football.London that Neves is unlikely to face a ban in the Super Cup, as the incident occurred in a FIFA tournament. Only a worldwide FIFA suspension could carry over, which seems unlikely. Tottenham will instead hope to take advantage of PSG's short pre-season break and lack of sharpness leading into the final. And new Spurs women boss Martin Ho officially started at Hotspur Way today, so all the very best of luck to him. And finally, I appeared on TalkSport earlier, giving my thoughts on most of these stories today, Spurs in general and the transfer window. Here is that interview.
This is Transfer Insiders on TalkSport, and we're now going to talk Tottenham Hotspur with Craig Dearman, who is the co-host of the Spurs Chat podcast. Congratulations on your European trophy. We just want to see that big smile on your face when people mention that trophy. Just how much of a weight off your shoulders is that one?
Oh, it's massive, absolutely massive. 17 years without a trophy, and the release. I was in the stadium watching the game, and just the relief and release of emotion was unbelievable. So, first European trophy in 41 years as well. But that 17-year thing that's been hanging over us is finally done and dealt with.
Kev, can Craig be described as long-suffering? Is he allowed to take that trophy?
Just about on the edge. Not quite as long-suffering as Villa, maybe, but just about on the edge. How did you feel about Ange going? Because I found that really fascinating, that whole kind of duality between the fact they were so bad in the league and yet he clearly prioritised the Europa League towards the end.
Yeah, and it was confirmed that's exactly what they did, and that is what got us over the line in the end. As for Postecoglou, I was a bit gutted that I thought he'd earned the right, to be honest with you, to go into the 3rd season. I thought he'd earned that, but the club saw it differently, and ultimately the league finishing position just wasn't good enough, and wasn't good enough for the club, even though we got over the line in the final. It was really an all or nothing game, that final. It was for Manchester United. It's probably more important for Spurs to win it, to be honest with you, because of the recent history you just mentioned. But yeah, I was gutted to see Postecoglou go, but now firmly behind Thomas Frank.
Yeah, Craig, it's another new era now. It's the Thomas Frank era, and I guess as new eras go, as starts go, taking a player from West Ham is quite nice, a nice start.
Well, the important thing for me was that we actually try and act like a big club and actually make big signings and ready-made players for the Premier League. And Kudus certainly is that. Obviously, last season, he wasn't brilliant for West Ham, but his first season, he really did well. I think there's a really good player in there. I think he's going to be really good for Tottenham. So overall, I'm happy. I don't care that he's come from West Ham. He's a good footballer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing him play in the Spurs shirt next season.
Morgan Gibbs-White, another one that Tottenham are being linked with. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about his release clause and whether Tottenham might have to be forced to pay a little bit more to Nottingham Forest. But is that an exciting deal if it comes off?
For me, it is, yeah. Morgan Gibbs-White is a player that I've really wanted at Spurs for a number of years, to be honest with you. I just think he's got better and better and better. I really hope this deal gets over the line. Obviously, there's issues that you mentioned that I would imagine they're going to be sorted out. I can't imagine the likes of Daniel Levy goes into any transfer without dotting the I's and crossing the T's. He seems to think, and the club would seem to think, as far as I know, that they've acted appropriately and they haven't done anything wrong. Forest are obviously going to think differently to that, but let's see what happens there. But certainly Morgan Gibbs-White, really exciting signing for me. And again, a player with Premier League experience that we so desperately need going into this Champions League campaign next year.
Craig, we obviously know that Thomas Frank's quite a flexible manager in terms of varying up his system game to game. Sometimes he'll play 3 at the back, sometimes it'll be 4 at the back, he'll sometimes play 2 up front. That's what he did at Brentford. Yeah. I'm just looking at kind of the makeup of the Spurs side, and Morgan Gibbs-White's obviously going to come in and play. What does that mean for James Maddison, who is a popular player with Tottenham fans? His durability is a bit under question, but where would he fit? What does that mean for him, Morgan Gibbs-White, coming in?
I think, to be honest, there's probably scenarios where you could play them both in the same team, but it's what we've been crying out for. Again, it's not just having that first 11, it's about having a squad. I mean, Manchester City have done this for years, Liverpool have done it for years. It's about creating a whole squad where there's no drop-off when players come in. So whether that be Maddison plays in a league game and Gibbs-White might play in a Champions League game, or vice versa, whatever it is, there's players challenging, good players challenging other players in key positions all over the park, and that's where you really want to get to. And as I say, Manchester City have done that for years, and look at the success they've had. That's where we fell foul last year. We obviously had our fair share of injuries and everything else that went along with last season. It could have been an absolute disaster, but it wasn't. We got over the line in the end. But building a squad for the Champions League, you're going to get found out in the Champions League if you don't build a squad, and bringing in somebody like Morgan Gibbs-White to challenge the likes of James Maddison, to challenge the likes of Dejan Kulusevski, is only a good thing.
Just on that point about squad strength, one of the things that really struck me last season was the difference in the team when you didn't have Mickey van der Ven. Now, he is a bit of a unicorn because you don't get many centre-backs who are that rapid. So he's not an easy guy to back up. Yeah. But obviously Romero's been linked with a move away. It wouldn't surprise me if some of the really big hitters in Europe are at least looking at Van der Ven. Not that you would lose him this summer. But one of the things it strikes me they have to do is work out a way of replacing him when he's not there.
Yeah, and as you say, that is incredibly difficult to replace Van der Ven, because we really suffered when he wasn't playing last season because of the high line Ange plays. Van der Ven had the pace to get back. I'm not sure Thomas Frank's going to play that kind of system, so it's not going to. The onus isn't going to be on Mickey van der Ven's hamstrings to get back every single time by playing such a high line. But the defenders we've got, the central defenders. If we keep Romero at the club, I'm hoping he stays this season. Obviously, we've got Romero, Van der Ven, Kevin Danso came in and has done very well, and he's now made permanent deal. We've just brought in another centre-back or defender, apparently can play anywhere across the line, Kota Takai, so he's come in. We've still got Ben Davies at the club, and we've got I think he's 18, Luka Vuskovic has come in. We signed him a couple of years ago. I think he's about 6'4". He's huge, but so young, so whether he gets loaned out again, I don't know, but I think we're in a really good place with centre-backs. But definitely if somebody like Romero goes, we're going to have to replace him this window.
Let's say, obviously, Kudus has already signed, and then Gibbs-White goes through as well. What other area would you like to see addressed this transfer window? What do you make the next priority to be for Tottenham?
Well, there's 3 for me. If I could really pick the transfers and pick what positions, number 1 would be a centre forward to challenge Solanke. I still think we need a centre forward, a number 9, if you like. and most of the fan base would probably agree with me that we need a number 6, a central defensive midfielder that can control the play, because we was ripped apart through the middle sometimes last season. We desperately need that big number 6 that can control the game. Now, Archie Gray has been touted as being that player, but he's still so young, not given many opportunities in that role last season because of injuries more than anything else. So the number 6 role, and finally a backup, or not even a backup, a challenger to left back for Destiny Udogie, if you're saying Pedro Porro and Jed Spence are going to be fighting out for the right back position. So those 3 positions for me: left back, central defensive midfield, and a number 9.
One player we've not talked about, and it's a bit of an emotional one, this in many ways, Heung-min Son. Because there's a player that's got a lot of miles on the clock, not just for Tottenham, but for South Korea as well. He's played a huge amount of football. I remember him years and years ago when he broke through at Hamburg in the Bundesliga. That seems like a lifetime ago. Is it fair to say that he's no longer the key player he was? And if that's true, what's the best thing to do with him?
Well, he's still our captain, I would say that. So he's key in that regard. But you're right, he has dropped off a bit. He's 33 now. He's going to lose a yard of pace. His influence in games isn't as much as it used to be. I think, to be honest, losing Harry Kane was a huge part. That was a huge part of Son's game, having them two. Obviously, record assists between the pair of them over the years. So I think there's different things that have led to not Son's demise as such, because I don't think he's gone down that much, but at the Premier League, and you really notice when players drop off, and Son, it has dropped off. But for me, Sonny, if he wants to go, I've said this for months, if he wants to go. If he wants to stay, happy to let him stay around. He's a legend at the club. I love Heung-min Son to bits. I think he's earned the right to choose what he wants to do, and I think that's ultimately should be his decision.
Yeah, Kev, some players kind of belie like transfers and clubs deciding to sell them and whatnot. I think Craig's right there. Son earned the right to
be the shape of his own destiny. Yeah, you wouldn't be wanting to kick him out. I mean, he deserves just the most amazing send-off when he goes, but it's a difficult thing for a player to deal with. If you've been automatic first choice for so long, if you are the captain, if you're suddenly in a situation where you're not always first name on the team sheet and suddenly you are getting rested a bit more than you'd like, it's quite a hard thing for a player with Son's kind of ambition and his ability and his drive to handle. So I'd just be really interested to see how Thomas Frank deals with it. I mean, this is where Frank, I think, comes into his own, actually. This kind of scenario where he has to have that human touch and he has to have that honesty with the player. So I'll just be really fascinated to see how they deal with it.
Craig, you happy with Thomas Frank? Would that have been your choice?
It's a difficult one because I felt, like I say, I thought Ange deserved that 3rd season. The fan base was kind of split on it, to be honest with you. There were sections of the fan base that thought that Ange should have stayed, and sections that want, and they want their Ange out, Ange in. It was kind of everybody was shoehorned in a box. Do you know what I mean? When Thomas Frank came in, I must admit I wasn't sure, but having done research on him, and obviously we've seen him week in, week out in the Premier League anyway with Brentford. Very good tactical manager. And when you actually do a deep dive into Thomas Frank, what he's all about, the coaching staff and everything and what they bring, I'm actually quite excited to see what Thomas Frank can do with this squad now. But he must be backed in this transfer window. As I say, we're getting there. We've got players over the line, but he must continue to be backed with ready-made players. Keep him with the club ethos of buying in youth, buying in young talent, but also ready now players. It's most important we back Thomas Frank in this window, because he'll be set up to fail if we don't continue to back the manager.
Craig, thank you ever so much, mate. We've loved talking to you. That's Craig Dearman, co-host of the Spurs Chat podcast.